right. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar from wherever you are. I'm Julia Flaherty, Digital Marketing Specialist at Ludgevy Partners, and we are a business and technology consulting firm focused on transforming our clients' sales, marketing, and customer service operations and processes that are supported by core technology like CRM and marketing automation. We are a Microsoft Dynamics Gold partner and ClickDimensions partner. I'm thrilled to be joined today by some of the team at ClickDimensions who will be guiding us through the content. But before I hand it over to them, I want to cover a few housekeeping notes with you and tell you a little bit more about what you're in for. Today's webinar will take up about an hour of your time. It is being recorded and will be available on demand after the live session. All attendees will receive a follow-up email after the webinar is complete with a link to access the presentation. If you have any trouble receiving that email, just reach back out to us. We'll provide contact information at the end of the presentation. To ensure the best audio quality, everyone is on listen-only mode, but if you have a question or comment, please submit those in the question pane of your GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll follow up with you later on. And now it's time to introduce today's presenters. Matthew is a MarTech Solution Specialist at ClickDimensions, and Kevin is a Solution Engineer. Today, they will be walking you through digital everything, how to succeed in an all-digital world. And then they will be providing a quick demo of how it can all be done with a marketing automation solution like ClickDimensions. Thanks to medical, scientific, and public health dedication and advancements, we're starting to see a light at the end of this tunnel with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Thank goodness. But we aren't quite there yet. 2021 is still a digital everything world, and things aren't slowing down anytime soon. We hope today's webinar will help you transform your marketing strategies to accommodate today's demands. At the end of the session, we'll open it up to a Q&A and give you some more resources for success that will help you take your strategies to the next level. So let's welcome Matthew and Kevin to get things started, shall we? Hi, guys.
Hey, Julia. Thank you for the introduction. We hope everyone on this call is having a good day, and we hope you get a lot out of this session. So we'll try to keep it relevant. And like Julia said, if there are any questions as we're going through, please feel free to pop them in the chat. We will address those at the end of the presentation. But with that, let's go ahead and get started. So digital everything is really what we're talking about. And we all know 2020 was a year of challenges. It was a lot different than what we're used to, for sure. We were working remote, a lot of us. There was social distancing. We all had masks on. I don't know about you guys, but I starting to get Zoom fatigue a little bit. But one thing we need to understand is we're now a quarter into 2021, and a lot of those tendencies from 2020 have actually stuck. So at least in the near term, we need to be able to, present our products and services in a way that's going to be relevant to how the world is working now. So, digital isn't going away, I guess would be my point. The way people buy has changed. The digital transformation that was beginning in some organizations, it wasn't just accelerated by COVID, it was practically mandated. So because our buyer behavior has changed, the way we sell has changed, which in turn changes the way we need to market. When thinking of sales and marketing, alignment of the two groups is no longer enough. Companies need to focus on integrating and unifying sales and marketing to ensure that organizations are in lockstep with one another and meeting the changing demands of buyer behavior. So that's what we're going to focus on today. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is going to be the need for a digital approach. So this past fall, Gartner released two reports, both of which were interesting, especially when giving insights on shifting buying and selling behavior. The first report, the Consumer Values and Lifestyle Survey from October, found that 43% of consumers plan to continue the current way of doing things online post-pandemic. Even more telling from their report, The Future of Sales 2025, Why Sales Needs a Digital-First Approach, Gartner predicts that in less than 5 years, 80% of B2B sales interactions will occur in digital channels. So that is validation that it's imperative that marketers adjust to an all digital world because it's not changing. And like we said before, it was headed that way before 2020, and then 2020 forced that shift on us almost immediately. So it's just something we need to be prepared for. And we actually did a survey internally as well. We asked our customers about their marketing practices and priorities, And the results shown here are from that benchmarking survey. And they pretty much say that our customers have identified a bunch of different digital strategies as their top priorities. It is a pretty diverse report, but it clearly shows a shift to digital. So we took that internally and we adjusted our marketing plans as well as some of our sales and marketing techniques to actually meet some of what the buyer demand was showing, which is a shift to digital. So how do we succeed in an all digital world? There's a few different ways that we're going to do this, but the first thing we're going to need to do is create a digital strategy. Another thing we're going to need to do is use our data that we're driving. And then we also need to go beyond just sending an email. So I know for a lot of us, when we're talking about what we're doing from a digital marketing perspective, most of us are doing something with email. But there is a lot of other things that we could be doing to actually increase our exposure to potential prospects as well as potential clients on a lot of different networks. So we'll talk about that a little bit today as well. But first, we want to talk about creating a digital strategy. So, looking at our first element of success, let's discuss the importance of a digital strategy. It may seem obvious to have a defined strategy, but that seemingly overnight shift to reliance on a digital marketing strategy created a reactive rather than proactive approach. To change that, we are going to need to strategize. There are several important considerations when creating your digital strategy, and the first is going to be define clear goals. So, we want to understand, what do we need to accomplish? What do we want to accomplish? And then the other thing that I think is really important is we want to ensure that those goals have a measurable metric so that we can actually see if we're meeting that goal that we set. So for example, if our goal was to drive more leads and revenue, the associated metrics would be the percentage increase in both leads and revenue. And I know that's a pretty simple one, and that's something we're all looking to do, but it is measurable. So if that is your goal, then let's set that benchmark at the beginning of whatever our established time frame was. And then from there, measure our results after implementing some sort of digital strategy. Second, we need to know what's worked in the past. So even though everything's changed, it doesn't mean the things that have worked won't work in the future. So let's look back at our past marketing efforts. What was successful? What wasn't? Look at success through performance metrics and not just anecdotal feedback, and then incorporate what's worked into your go forward plan. Now, the last thing we need to do is we need to be realistic about our means. So we need to understand what our budget is and what we can do with that budget. But we also need to understand that means doesn't just mean budget. We also want to know, do we have the right resources? Do those resources have the right skill sets? And then if they do we have the tools that we need to execute this strategy we're trying to implement? So we bring all of these considerations into our final strategy, and then we are ready to move forward. So our next element of digital marketing success is going to focus on the importance of data. Going back to the ClickDimensions benchmarking survey I referenced before, 84% of our customers said that marketing analytics were important to their marketing strategy. Furthermore, a recent Forrester report found that 74% of businesses say they want to be data driven, but less than 30% feel that they are good at connecting analytics to action. So, we want to be data driven, but not a lot of us actually know how to do that. Not a lot of us know how to measure these metrics. That's something we need to focus on, we need to work on in order to get us to that place where we can be successful using data to guide our decisions. So how do we unlock the power of that data? So a digital approach relies on data. Data is one of the most powerful tools a marketer has. You can utilize data to be more personalized in your marketing efforts. We can pull data elements that you've captured about your audience into campaigns and begin creating personalized experiences. And these are experiences that buyers are used to in their consumer lives, but they're starting to expect those same types of experiences on the B2B side as well. And the most obvious use of data is going to be analytics. So study trends and making decisions based off of what your data tells you is really going to help you be successful. And remember, actionable data needs to be clean data. So one of the things that we need to focus on in order to make this data usable is make sure that we're cleaning it as we're capturing as well. So that needs to be a priority for us. But we also need to go beyond email. So moving to our last key element for digital marketing success, Recognize that digital is more than just email. In our benchmarking survey, almost half of respondents indicated that more than half of their marketing campaigns include channels outside of email. So that's going to include things like, social posting, SMS messaging. We can drive people to surveys, and we'll talk about that more as we move forward, but we just need to start thinking outside of email. It's basically going to be the point of that. So again, let's dig deeper. A multi-channel campaign means you're more likely to be where your prospects are and increases the likelihood of your audience paying attention to you and not relegating your campaigns to the rest of the digital noise they are bombarded with on a daily basis. Getting specific, we're going to talk about how MarTech tools, specifically marketing automation technology platforms, support multi-channel marketing. For the next few minutes, we'll discuss features that are common components of marketing automation platforms, including ClickDimensions, and these different platforms that enable a multi-channel approach. So we'll cover things like automated campaigns, forms, surveys, events, and social marketing. So automated campaigns, you might have heard them referenced as nurture campaigns, drip campaigns, or if you're speaking about ClickDimensions, we actually call them campaign automation. But regardless of what you call them, automated campaigns allow you to communicate with your audience based on their past interactions and activities. This means you can trigger elements of campaigns based on how they interact with prior components of the same campaign. You can create a personalized one-on-one experience for each individual that's going through this campaign automation, but we're doing it on a mass scale. So, we're using those interactions from that person, like specific link clicks in an email or specific clicks on a social post, and we're using that information to send them targeted marketing content that is related to what they were already interacting with. And I know we're talking about going beyond email, and it's true that email is one of the foundations of the automated campaigns, but platforms like ours, they'll enable you to incorporate other channels into a campaign. So we could do things like send an email, but we could also schedule a phone call. We could send an SMS message. We could refer them back to a social media post. There is a lot of functionality in here, and we just want to focus on the fact that it doesn't necessarily have to be an email, especially when we're targeting people in multiple channels. So let's talk about a couple of the other functionalities, and that's going to be landing pages, forms, and surveys. Now, when we're talking about landing pages, they extend a company's website and allow for a clear single call to action that increases conversion. And there are going to be less distractions from a landing page because there aren't all of the other navigational buttons that you'd find on a website. Oftentimes, landing pages include forms or surveys, so we can embed a form or survey into this landing page, but those are going to be useful as well. Forms allow for the gating of content. We can use them to have people sign up for communications or things like events. But it's really also a means of data capture, and especially when you're using an integrated tool like ClickDimensions, when someone fills out that form, that data is going right into your CRM. So now that we're capturing information about this person, we have their email address, we have their phone number, we can start marketing to this individual. Now we can also include a survey on a landing page. And these surveys are going to allow you to dig deeper with your audience and capture data points that you wouldn't normally find on a form. So again, forms aren't going to have the ability to capture every piece of data that we're looking for. If you've ever filled out a survey in the past, there's individual text boxes where you can answer questions freely without having to choose necessarily from a pick list, or answering a simple question like what's your city. And especially if they're current customers, you're going to get a lot of feedback if we're using surveys. And like we said before, we're focusing on capturing data, and surveys and forms are going to be two of the top ways that marketers can capture customer and potential customer data. So we want to make sure that we're incorporating those into our multi-channel marketing approach as well. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is going to be event management. And one of the reasons for that is events were one of the most affected marketing strategies in 2020. So, we weren't meeting in person. A lot of this switched to digital. Trade shows were canceled, but webinars saw a surge in popularity. And if you bought Zoom stock, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. but these mimic smaller events. And as these in-person events have morphed into digital events, it's important to recognize that these online events still enable organizations to connect with their target audience and provide a meaningful but different way of networking and making sales connections. So, we're still talking to these people, we're still showing them what we can do. It's just not in person anymore. And at the same time, there is some benefit to that for some companies, because they're not spending money on things like travel or hotel expenses, eating out while we're in other cities. So a lot of people have become accustomed to the digital trade show over going somewhere in person, and that's something we don't think is going away immediately. So if we can make the most out of these online events, then we're gonna see a pretty solid impact on our marketing as well. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is going to be social media marketing. So social media has played a large role since the onset of the pandemic, and honestly before that as well. Social was in some cases concerned or considered a marketing task without a strategic tie into other marketing programs or activities, but that has certainly changed, especially for us at ClickDimensions. According to eMarketer, 1/3 of the world uses social media regularly, and social media instantly became a critical communication channel for marketers to get their messages out when lockdown started and offices closed. Social allows businesses to connect with prospects, customers, and partners, giving them the opportunity to not just push their message out, but listen to what their audience is talking about and use what they hear on social to make their campaigns more relevant. So, one of the things I always say, especially when we're looking specifically at a social tool, is look around. Everybody is staring at their phones constantly. Now, some of them might be checking their email, but most of them, they're looking at their social media. So that attention is there organically. And people call social media addicting too. So, you know, people spend a lot of the time of their time on their phone, and you probably get that message, especially if you have an Apple iPhone, that tells you exactly how much screen time you're using every day. And sometimes those numbers are pretty high, anywhere from like 3 to 7 hours a day people spend on their phone. And most of the time they're looking at social. So if we can capture some of that organic attention, it's really going to help us drive more leads for our sales team, and it's going to help that marketing and sales team be more intertwined. So we want to make sure that we're using social. It's going to be a pretty important factor for us as we're moving forward. So let's bring all of that together. We have all of these different marketing strategies, and we want to know how to use them in one spot. One of the features we want to talk about for this is going to be an example of a digital campaign automation. So let's say someone sees an ad on Google or Microsoft or another online property. They click on that ad and then submit a form from one of your landing pages. So that ad takes them to the landing page. They submit the form. That person is now in our database as a leader contact. So we automatically bring them into Dynamics. It becomes an actionable lead for our sales team. So at that point, we can put that individual into an automated nurture campaign that includes email, but also triggers based on if they interact with a social media post or visit a page on our website. So we're tracking all of this behavior, and then their activity in the automated campaign could indicate it's time for them to engage with the sales rep and begin progressing through your pipeline. That's awesome, right? We want to get our sales guys on the phone with any of these people that we're reaching out to. But even if it's not at that stage, we could lead them into a different automated campaign, this one focused on a webinar, including invites and follow-up communications. And then after that webinar is over, we could even send them a survey that asks them what they thought about it. So, when we get off this call, if we send you a survey, that could be part of an automated campaign around this webinar that we're even doing right now. So, and then, there are different paths through these as well, right? So we can build multiple arms in this, and I'll show you how to do this on a demo in just a minute. But if they engage with the sales rep, maybe they progress to a new sale. But we could also, use any of those email sends or social link clicks we're driving or any page views to analyze our success in this campaign also, because we are measuring all of those interactions as well. Now we do want to use data as we're going through this, so it is important that we're tying all of this information together. And when you are using a product like ClickDimensions that's fully native to Dynamics, all of that data is going to be stored right alongside that contact and lead record, so we can look into any of that data from an individual level, we can look at it from a Dynamics campaign level, or we can look at it from an organizational level. But it's really going to be up to us to make sure that we're using the information that we're driving. And then when we are gathering data and information on these people that we're interacting with, we want to make sure that we're using that data to send them marketing content related to what they're interested in, right? So if someone clicks a social link related to a specific product or service of yours, we don't want to send them a piece of marketing content that's not related to that product. We want to make sure that that next piece of content is related to what they just interacted with. And I'll show you how we build some of that out today. So the next part of this call is going to be a demo from us, and we'll keep it fairly short today just for the sake of time, but I think we are going to see some pretty powerful tools in here. So I'm going to go ahead and X out of the PowerPoint. Now I am jumping into my dynamic sandbox. So like I said before, ClickDimensions is fully native to dynamic CRM, and it is going to give you a lot of functionality. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is how we use Dynamics campaigns internally here at ClickDimensions. So at least from a marketing perspective, Dynamics campaigns act as a kind of folder for us to house all of our related data. So let's say, for the example, that we release a new product and we create a social post related to that new product. We create a web form related to that new product where people can raise their hand and say, hey, I want to learn more. We also send out an email send related to the new product, and we're hosting an event related to that new product. All of those marketing efforts can be tied back to a single Dynamics campaign where we can look at all of this related data. And that Dynamics campaign is also going to track the leads and opportunities that are being generated as a result of all of these related efforts. So as we're going through this demo, you'll see me tying things to specific Dynamics campaigns, but that's why. And if we do jump into this related tab, we can see things like any bulk text we've sent for this campaign, any events, those participations, those social clicks, posts, any captured forms, any surveys that we sent out, campaign automations that we ran specifically for this. All of that is going to be available in here. We're going to be able to see those target marketing lists that we're sending this information to. We can see any sent emails, but that's going to be one way to access this ClickDimensions data. And then this campaign will actually track those leads. So lots of functionality in there, but we just want to make sure that we are using Dynamics campaigns to their full functionality, so that way we can be as successful as possible. Now we are going to give you a marketing calendar too, so you will have insight into all of our scheduled marketing activities. I am on a pretty small screen, so it's not popping everything out currently, but if I do click into one of these, it's going to show us all of our scheduled emails, texts, events, social posts, campaign automations, and campaigns that we're currently running. And then if we hit this drop down right here, we have the option to dive into some of these other areas where we do have a lot of marketing functionality. And the first that I want to talk about is going to be the messaging tab. So this messaging tab is going to be where we go to create new email sends. It's going to be where we go to create social posts. It's also where we create those automated journeys that we were talking about earlier. We can look into any of our email statistics here. We can create new texts, but really, I also want to show you how easy it is to actually use some of the logic and some of the things that we know about people to target them, even when we're just building an email. So in order to create an email send itself, we are going to have to title this. You'll also have the ability to select an editor type. Now, I will say the new drag and drop is the most common for our customers to use, but we do have a freestyle editor as well as a custom HTML if you like working with code. When we scroll down, you have the ability to select a pre-built email template. Those templates are going to have the same functionality when it comes to building them as this email send will. So we'll just look at building the email send itself. We do need to add a subject line in here. You could add a pre-header if we wanted to, but this is where we're going to tie this back to that Dynamics campaign that I was talking about. You basically just search inside of CRM for any existing campaign, click into it, and now we have the campaign where we're tying all this data back. We also have the ability to do things like send this from someone else in our company. So one of the things that we'll do on a pretty regular basis is we will send this from our CEO, Mike Dickerson, and we will put his email address in. But we also don't want his inbox getting blown up with any of the responses we might receive. So we can actually change the reply to email address. And one of the things we'll do is we will put our marketing alias in here. So now that I have that, I can save it, and I will have the ability to pull in one of those marketing lists that I've pre-created inside of CRM. So I go to add existing marketing list. I can pull any of my pinned ones, or I could search it. But once I add that, I have my list of recipients as well. Now I could um, also schedule this into the future if I wanted to, but just for the sake of the demo, we'll go ahead and say we're sending it immediately. But when I'm ready to create the email itself, I'm going to go ahead and open my editor. And this is going to be drag and drop. And I'm going to actually start from one of the templates that I've created in the past. So when I go into this template here, we can see we do have our standard sections. So you could add images, text, videos, social links, social shares. If I did want to add something in here, I really only have to drag it in. It'll give us my option to select this image. I could go into one of the folders where I'm storing all of my images. I also have the ability to upload any new images, but I select this, click OK, and now that's inside of the email. But really, what we were talking about in the PowerPoint is we want the ability to decide, how we're interacting with this person after we send them the email, so we can link different sections in here to track those link clicks and see which type of content this customer is actually interested in. Now, as far as the rest of the elements go, we do have something that I think is going to be super useful as well, which is the ability to save sections. So let's say, we are putting social share buttons as well as links to our social media sites in the bottom of all of these emails, which you'll see at the bottom of this one too. But you don't want to have to recreate that every time. We can go ahead and pull one of these saved sections over here and just drop it in if we wanted to. So you don't have to worry about adding all of the, subscription management stuff or any of the social links at the bottom. We'll just save that as a section. You can use it in all of your emails. Now, when it comes to using some of the data that we have for this contact or lead, you're going to have the ability to add what's known as section settings in here. So let's say we have a marketing list of people that raise their hand for a series of events that we're hosting across the United States. But we are putting out information that is related to where and when this event is actually happening, but we only want people in certain regions to see different parts of the email. So instead of breaking up that marketing list, what you can do is you can go to add conditions here, and we could say, for this top section of the email, the contact is only going to be able to see this if their address city equals Atlanta. Oops. And we can do this for any of the fields that you have inside of Dynamics. So again, the more data we're capturing, the more targeted we could be. But let's just say, we only want people in Atlanta to see that part of the email. We save that condition. Now only people in Atlanta can read this section. So that does give you some flexibility when it comes to using the same marketing list, because you can add conditions to decide, who sees what based on the data we have for that person. Now we are going to give you some other features inside of the email builder itself as far as, test and preview. So if we do want to see what this would look like before we actually send it out, we could look at what it looked like on a mobile or desktop. We could send a preview email to ourselves if we wanted to check it. But we also have what's known as an inbox preview. And this is going to put this through a variety of different types of inboxes it could end up in on a variety of different browsers. We'll show you what this email looks like on Android versus iPhone. So, there is a lot of functionality in here. It does take just a second because we are running it through all of these different inboxes. But you can click into these and see exactly what it would look like on this option that we're viewing currently. If I do go back to the preview itself, we also have a spam filter, and this is going to be pretty useful as well, because if we're sending this email to a large number of clients, we just want to make sure that it's going to show up in the inbox. So, we're going to show you if it passed or failed. If it does fail, it'll show up as red. It'll give us a little information as to why we failed. And then from there, we can edit the email to make sure that we don't get caught in a spam filter and that this is actually going to show up in the inbox. So that's something that we can do before we send any of these emails. And then you're also going to have the ability to do things like split tests. So we could actually test two different email templates. We could test two different subject lines or from senders. And then we'll decide how we want to choose the winner. So you'll have options like unique opens, unique clicks, total opens, or total clicks. but it does give you a lot of flexibility when it comes to designing this email as well as testing it. So that's just a brief overview of the email functionality. If we keep scrolling down, the next thing I want to talk about is going to be the campaign automation features, especially because that was something we talked about as we were going through the deck. But this is how we're going to create those automated nurture journeys as well as drip campaigns. But what I need to do to create one of these is click new. I can title this. We can tie this back to that campaign that we were talking about earlier. And then once I save this, I'm going to have the ability to open this builder. So we do give you a few templates to start with, and you can use any of the previously created campaign automations to start one of these as well. But just to show you how easy it is to actually build, I'm going to start from a blank canvas here. And we're also going to start with a web form. So we do have a variety of different triggers and actions that we can take. We also have some wait and date timers in here as well. But we are going to be able to trigger this based off of a submitted form, things like a page visit, social clicks, registering for an event could kick one of these off. We can even use a field update in Dynamics. If someone's added or removed from a list, we can use that to kick this off. Same with submitting a survey or a subscription management change. But all of those are going to play an important role, especially when we're talking about a multi-channel marketing approach. And like we said before, you can send emails with these, but we have a lot of other functionality in here as well. So we have the ability to assign owners, we can add or remove people from lists, we can update fields in Dynamics, we can notify one of our users of a certain activity, we can create tasks, kick off Dynamics workflows, notify teams, create a campaign response, or send an SMS message. But let's see how we would build one. So these are drag and drop as well. So if someone does submit a form on our website, for example, one of the more common use cases for this is going to be the ability to actually assign an owner in Dynamic CRM. So what we can do is we can pull out 2 owners. We can do more than that if we wanted to, but just for the sake of time, we will start with 2. And then we're actually going to use the information that we're capturing on that form to decide where this is being routed. So we populate here what's called a decision node. So if I do click into this decision node, I'm going to have the ability to add a clause to decide how we route this to owner 1. So whether or not we're creating a leader contact with this form, we'll select, which one that form is creating. And then we'll say, and I'm going to use the city again here, but the contact address city equals Atlanta. That's being assigned to owner 1. For owner 2, I could add something like, the contact address city equals Chicago. So now anything coming through Atlanta is being assigned to owner 1. Anything that's coming from Chicago is being assigned to owner 2. And now as far as actually selecting who the owner is, you'll be able to just search your CRM. So for Atlanta, I'm going to assign that to myself. And for owner 2, I'm going to go ahead and assign that to Kevin Miller. So now we have both of our reps being assigned this information. And again, you don't have to do it based off of city. It's any of the fields that we're capturing in Dynamics we can use for this. But let's say we also want to go ahead and send an automated email that says, hey, thanks for submitting the form. What we're going to do is we will pull a send email button out here. And then from there, I can select which email I want to use. So you are going to be able to pull from any of the existing templates that you have in place. I select the template I want to use. You are still going to have the ability to choose who we're actually sending this from. And then from there, I can start doing things like checking email interactions to decide, how I market to this person next. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the email interaction trigger over here. I'm going to select the email that I want to check. And then I want to look for where in the email they are actually clicking. What I can do is I can select which links. So I'm going to use this linked image here. And now we have what's known as a positive or negative path. So if someone clicks on that link, we're going to put them down the positive path. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add them to another marketing list. So we know this email is a real email. We know this person is interested because they clicked. So we're going to add them to a marketing list where we're sending content related to that specific link that they clicked on. But one of the other things I want to do is make sure that I notify either a team or a user to reach out to this person. So I know we've already assigned it to that person, but we want to make sure that they know that they need to reach out. So what we can do is we could do something like create a task for that person, or we could use like the notify team or notify user button. Now let's say they didn't click. So what's our next step? Well, if we wanted to try another channel, we could do something like send an SMS here. So we could go ahead and send them a text if we captured their mobile number. But we could also, send them another email. And then, like we did before, we're going to go ahead and check that email interaction. And then based off of if they clicked or not, if they did click, we can add them back to that same marketing list. And that marketing list too could be used to kick off another campaign automation. So let's say, we're using the added to list functionality to actually kick off one of these campaign automations. We could add this person to a list and put them directly into another campaign automation based off of what they're interacting with. There is really room for a lot of creativity here. Now, again, if they didn't interact, we could keep sending them things. We could, take them off a list if we wanted to, but it does give you the ability to, really build out these automated journeys, and it does take the heavy lifting off of marketers a lot of the time. So this is just a really quick example on how we would build out one of these campaign automations. But again, if we want to market to people based off of what they're interacting with, this is going to be a great way to go about this. So, save as template. I talked about that earlier. This is going to give you the ability to start from here next time we're building a campaign automation. So you can just change which emails we were sending or which links we were checking for, but lots of flexibility. So with that too, I do want to mention, because we are tracking social link clicks or page views, you have the ability to use a social link click or a page view to start one of these as well. We could also manually add people to this, and you can have more than one start point for each campaign automation also. So it's not just a one-off for each one of these. We could use multiple triggers to actually kick this off. It just depends on what we are trying to do here. So with that, I'm going to move forward, but just know that when we talk about marketing automation, especially for ClickDimensions, this is where a lot of that automated process will actually come in. All right, so if we keep scrolling down the messaging tab here, I talked about this before, but you do have all of your organizational level statistics available to you in these different tabs. So if we wanted to see all of our recent sent emails, for example, you're going to be able to see who we emailed this to, the lead score of the person based off of their interactions. We'll be able to see if someone's opening, clicking, or if this is being delivered or caught in the spam folder. We'll track your unsubscribes as well. But all of this data is available inside of CRM. We can create a new SMS message. With ClickDimensions, we work with Twilio, Bulk SMS, and MessageNet. But in order to actually send this, what you would have to do is title this again. We can tie it back to this campaign we were talking about earlier. And then once we save that, you have the ability to go ahead and build the message content. But like we saw in the email, you have the ability to personalize this content using any of the fields that we have for this person, because we are native to Dynamics. So, if I wanted to pull a piece of short code related to, the contact's city again, I can pull that in here. That's going to automatically populate the information we have for this person on the city, and then we could actually go into the messaging itself. You can pull their first name, last name, kid's name, whatever you have saved as a field inside of Dynamics. We can use that to customize any of the text that we're sending in a SMS or in an email. Can send bulk text as well. We also have the ability to create new social posts inside of Dynamics. And really the reason that we would actually send a social post through Dynamics itself over sending through the platform would be because we have the ability to track those link clicks. And we saw in the campaign automation, we can use that link click to actually target people based off of the posts that they're interacting with. So again, I can tie this back to that Dynamics campaign. And then once I save this, I have the ability to go ahead and create my social post. So you are going to have the ability to post to LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We can schedule these posts into the future if we wanted to. You actually have some audience choices when it comes to Facebook. We can target people by specific geographic location. LinkedIn's going to give us a little bit more functionality than that when it comes to the audience, because we can select who we want to see this based on things like company size, industry, function, seniority, geography, or language. I will say you do have to have 300 followers in each of those categories that we select on LinkedIn, so just be mindful of that. And then with Twitter and Instagram, you have the ability to add a location down here. But again, the main point of this is going to be we can track that link click back to specific contacts and leads. So if I do go down here to the social clicks themselves, we'll have what we call anonymous visits, and that's going to show us, where they're coming from. But we can also track existing contacts or leads back to that contact or lead record. And again, this is another layer where we can actually see this ClickDimensions data. So if I wanted to see exactly what Sunil was interacting with, I could see the link he clicked on, I could see the social network, and I could see the social profile as well as the post itself. Now, one of the things we do that I think is pretty cool is we actually have the ability to retroactively assign these anonymous visits back to an existing contact or lead to show an entry point for this person. And the way we do that is we capture that initial link click, right? Let's say we don't have this person's information saved inside of Dynamics. This person comes to our social page, sees one of our social posts, clicks on the link, and then from there, they are directed to one of our web forms. That link click happened before the web form was filled out. But once that web form is filled out, we associate that link click back to this person so we can see the entry point on how this person reached out. Now, another way that we're going to be able to retroactively assign the click is if someone clicks a link in an email. So if we capture this person's information from somewhere else or we enter it organically, we send them an email, they click on a link, we now have this social post tied to this person also. So there is a few different ways we can do that, but it is going to show us at least what that first interaction looked like, especially if it came from social. So that's a quick overview of the messaging tab. And I don't want to go over time today, so I'll keep the next section pretty brief. But I will say under web content, this is where we're going to come to create our forms. This is where we would come to create our landing pages. We do have a new survey tool that we're super excited about here that's meant to be competitive with SurveyMonkey, but we can build logic into that. And based off of how people are answering questions, we can decide what our next question will be. And just to show you what that looks like real quick, I'm going to search one of the ones that I've pre-created here. And then when I go to design, it is going to pop out another window for us. But again, this is one of those things that we use to collect data, and we can show you individual responses to any of the survey questions based off of an individual filling out the survey. So you can look into the individual responses, or we could look at the average responses under a survey report. If I do want to go ahead and test this survey that I built, it's asking me 2 questions here. How old am I? Then we also have this NPS score here. So if I click 0, for example, asking about Julio Jones's week 6 performance, it's going to ask me, what do I think he could have done better? And it's going to give me that same question all the way up until 6. But once I start getting to 8, 9, and 10, it's going to ask me different questions, like what's your favorite Julio catch? And also, what do I think the coolest thing is about Julio Jones? But the point for this is, based off of how people are responding, we can also send people different question paths. So if, someone gives us a 0 on an NPS rating, we don't want to ask them next, what's the best thing or what do you like most about our company? We want to know things that are more relevant to how they're actually answering. So you have that kind of logic functionality throughout ClickDimensions, but it's also available in the surveys. We can create subscription management pages. We can look at our web statistics from an organizational level because we are tracking those page views. Again, you'll have access to the marketing calendar. And then if you are using WebEx, Cvent, Eventbrite, GoToWebinar, or Zoom, we actually have the ability to pull that information in from the specific meeting tool that we're using and automatically create registrants and participants as leads or contacts inside of CRM, so you don't actually have to do a list import. So lots of useful functionality there. Library, we're going to store all of your images in here. We can use the audience tab to actually create those marketing lists that we're using when we're sending out our content. And again, adding someone to this list could actually kick off one of those campaign automations for us. And then settings and support, that's where you would go to actually control your lead score settings. It's where we would set up the event connector. But really, this is a brief overview, and if anyone is interested in taking a closer look at this tool and going through some specific use cases with my team and the LedgeView Partners team, we will be more than happy to do so. But at this moment, we'll go ahead and go back into the PowerPoint. So again, any questions on the stuff that we talk about, please pop them into the chat. And if anybody is interested in taking a deeper dive into ClickDimensions and Dynamics, please let us know once we're off the call as well. So going back to some of our final thoughts here, everything has changed basically. And that's been a constant for marketers since the beginning. But with last year, we saw it more than ever, and we need to change and adapt with it. And some of the ways that we can do that is making the most out of the tools that we have at our disposal. And I know the term feels overused. I get tired of it myself, but it is the new normal. People are doing things online. People are not in the office, and we need to adapt to that. And smart businesses, they will lean into the change and use technology. So Microsoft Dynamics and things like ClickDimensions are really going to help us out, especially when we are working from home on a regular basis. So it's just something to think about as we move into the future. But I do want to jump into the Q&A. So if we do have any questions, I have myself on the call with Julia, as well as Kevin Miller, who's one of our pre-sales engineers. So if we do have something more technical, I will defer to Kevin, but we should be able to answer any of the questions.
It looks like the first question that we have here is from Chris. He asks, we use Dynamics for marketing. What's the difference between that and ClickDimensions for a dynamic CRM customer?
Yeah, so, we at ClickDimensions, we are a Microsoft partner, and we do love Microsoft. I will say, if you're looking for a native marketing automation tool, it is going to be between ClickDimensions and Microsoft's marketing app. Now, ClickDimensions is one solution file on the back end of Dynamic CRM. I think Microsoft's is closer to 40. So, it is less to manage when it comes to things like updates. It's a little bit easier on the IT team. ClickDimensions does offer things like services where we can actually do marketing for you that Dynamics doesn't, or the Dynamics marketing app doesn't necessarily do. But the biggest thing from a feature comparison is going to be that ClickDimensions lets you market to leads or contacts, while the Dynamics app is restricted to contacts. Now they might be changing that in the future, but at least at the moment, we do have a lot of similar functionality. But the marketing to leads is generally a pretty big thing that most Microsoft marketing app users are a little disappointed with. But again, Microsoft is one of our biggest partners. They make great products as well. So if you're going native, it should be ClickDimensions or the Microsoft marketing app. And Julia, do we have any other questions in there, or was there a follow-up to that one? Julia, can you still hear me over there?
Yeah, sorry about that. My call dropped for a moment, but I'm back on.
Okay, perfect. Do we have any other questions in there? I think I see the chat flashing.
I don't see any more questions coming in, but now is certainly the time to submit them. If anyone would like to still ask a question today, otherwise, if we get a few coming in, we can always follow up via email.
Perfect. Well, I do appreciate everyone's time today and hearing me out. And again, if any other questions come up, please feel free to shoot them our way. We will be more than happy to help. And if anybody would like to take a more personalized look at ClickDimensions, please let us know. We'll be happy to schedule that also. But if we don't hear from you, enjoy your weekend, at least from my side.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that information with us and showing us how it works. That's about all the time that we have today. But before you log off, we do encourage that you check out both resource libraries of ClickDimensions and LedgeView Partners. As you can see, we both carry a wide variety of complementary content that will help you enhance and refine your marketing and CRM strategies and more. Again, with any questions you may have about today's presentation that come up later, don't hesitate to reach out. You'll see our contact information on your screen now. That's a wrap from us. Thanks again for taking the time to join today's presentation. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And if you celebrate Easter, enjoy that upcoming holiday. Goodbye, everyone.